Hi there. Welcome to the Aquarium Online Academy's BTS How to Build an Exhibit episode. Hi, Eel. I'm Stacy coming to you from the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach, California. This eel seems to want to be part of our program today, so hey, I'm okay with it. Now, we are not going to be focusing on the eels exhibit. In fact, we're going to be focusing on an octopus exhibit. So I would love to hear what your thoughts are or any questions that you might have about how we build our exhibits here, octopuses, whatever it might be. And in order for you to contact us, all you need to do is actually send us a text. Our number is right over here. It's 562-286-1838. Now, when you do text, if you are a younger viewer, please make sure that you ask for permission before you send that text in. Otherwise, we would love to hear from you. And if you want to add your name in there too, we can actually say your name during our program here. Now, if you are not watching this live, if you're watching it after the fact, but you would still love some questions answered or even share some of your thoughts, you can still get in touch with us. In fact, all you need to do is email, and the email address is right here down below. It's live@lbaop.org. And our phone number is there as well. All right, so please feel free to send those texts in or those emails in as you see fit. Now, we are going to be taking a look at octopuses and trying to figure out how would you build an octopus exhibit so that octopus has a healthy and enriched life. Basically, we want to take like a piece of the ocean and bring it in here to the aquarium so the octopus can thrive. Now, what does that even mean? Here is something that you could potentially do. Now, this here is a giant Pacific octopus, and we're really going to be focusing on the giant Pacific octopus because it is one of the animals that we feature here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. Now, I want you, if you have a paper and a pencil, pen, whatever that might be, if you would like to draw out an exhibit, that would be a really great thing to do. What do you think a giant Pacific octopus exhibit should look like? All right, so if you want to draw that out, go for it. If you want to just list things that you would put inside the exhibit and maybe little notes on where you would put it, like would you put the big rock up at the top? Would you put it at the bottom? Things like that. What are some of the things you'd have to consider when you're putting together a place for an octopus like this to live in an aquarium like this Aquarium of the Pacific? So those are a couple of things that you can do. Now, as we learn more and more about this octopus, you might start getting some new ideas, some different thoughts about what this exhibit should look like, what needs to be included, what should we leave out, and then even what neighbors should live with our octopus friend here, because that is one of the trickiest things. Now, most of our exhibits here at the aquarium do not just have a single kind of animal. A lot of them actually have a few different animals that live together or tons of animals that live together, like our big tropical exhibit, for example. So it really just depends on the animals that you're featuring. Now, whenever you build that exhibit, you do want to know about the animals you put inside, because that is how you're going to build the exhibit that will help them be healthy and to thrive. So first, let's learn a little bit about a giant Pacific octopus. Now, while we're learning about the octopus, if you want to continue to build your exhibit at home by drawing or making that list, go for it. Make alterations as you see fit. So, giant Pacific octopus. First of all, where would you find one? Now, these animals actually are cooler water animals. So you might find some in Southern California around Long Beach, but we don't see them in abundance. So we don't have a ton of them. In fact, the majority of these animals are going to be found much further north as the water gets cooler and cooler while you move towards the poles. So you do tend to see more of the giant Pacific octopuses where the water is cold. Now, does that give you an idea of the water temperature you're going to need for your exhibit? Now, what are the other things that we're going to have to consider? First, let's take a look here. What do you notice about this space? Well, there's not much going on up here, but take a look down here. It's not just flat. There's a little bit of texture happening. So where the octopus lives, you're going to have a lot of texture. In fact, a lot of times you'll find an octopus living in a really, really rocky area. And that really rocky area is going to be great for this animal because it allows them many places to hide. An octopus is an incredibly squishy animal. It is an invertebrate, meaning it does not have a backbone. In fact, the only hard parts really of an octopus's body, there's a tiny hard part in the eye, that's its lens, and then of course where the mouth is. The mouth is located between all of the arms, kind of on the underside of the octopus, and that mouth is a beak. I actually have a model of a squid beak here, but it's very similar to an octopus's beak. So you can kind of see what that looks like. So this is the mouth of a squid, very similar to an octopus because they're cousins basically. And so this is a pretty tough part of it. This is really the largest, hardest part of an octopus's body. Now, this is the cool part. If this beak can fit through a crevice or a hole, that entire octopus can actually squish through. Because this is the only hard part, as long as this can fit, because it doesn't squish, the rest of the body actually squishes right through. So not only are they really great at finding places like this to hide, but they're also really great at fitting into small spaces. So think of that for your exhibit. Would you want to have a lot of small spaces for them to slide around in? Do you want to make sure that there's not small spaces for them to escape through? Something to think about, right? All right. Now, while you're thinking about that, we have Rummy asking, how does the octopus see? Do they see in both directions at the same time? That's a great question. So these are their eyes, right? They have one on each side of their head. So there's one on this other side here. Basically, they're going to see wherever their eyes are pointed. Now, you'll notice that the eyes don't exactly rotate around, right? So I don't see them really moving around. It looks like it's fixed inside of its head. You know, I've never actually made that observations before, but I'm making that observation right now. But you'll notice that the eye is pointing this way, and then this eye is pointing that way. So it's going to be able to see all of that space. It actually has a pretty good range. And it can see, the giant Pacific octopus at least, from my understanding, can see about as well as we can see. Now, what we can see in the air is how well they can see, but underwater. So they maybe don't see quite as well in the air, just like we don't see quite as well in the water. But they're actually fairly good at sensing their surroundings with their eyes. Now, here's another interesting thing. In our eyes, we have a couple of different types of cells. We have rods and cones. And those two different parts of our eyes help us to see light and dark and shades of light and dark, like, you know, grays and that sort of thing. And then the other one helps us to see colors. Now, they don't have that. So you would then assume that an octopus can't see color. But recent studies have shown that they actually can see color by changing the shape of the pupil of their eye. And this is wild. It doesn't work that way for us. For us, the pupil of your eye is that very middle circle, the dark circle. And if it's really dark, the circle gets bigger. So it allows more light in. If it's really bright out, that circle contracts smaller. So it kind of reduces the amount of light that comes in. And so you can even see that, like if you were to look in a bathroom mirror or something. But for an octopus, you'll notice it's not a circle, right? It's a slit. Now that slit can change if they kind of use their muscles in their eye to kind of change the shape of it a little. And that is how they can detect color. Now, why would an octopus need to detect color? What is out there for them to find? Well, for one, they might want to find a really great place to hide. Remember, they're squishy. Being squishy means you get eaten a lot. Oh, they can move their eyes laterally. Really cool. Thank you, Carrie. Carrie's taking your questions, and she's also looking up information to make sure I'm stay honest here. So yes, they can move their eyes laterally. I'm not seeing that here, but it can happen, which is cool. Maybe we just need to watch more octopus videos. Why not, right? Okay, so they need to be able to hide. Not only are they hiding from the things that want to eat them, but they also want to hide from the things that they eat. An octopus is really well known for its ability to camouflage. They have an incredible ability to camouflage. And so we actually have a couple of videos to see how that works. So you can see an octopus here. Easy to see, right? Check this out. Did you see how that octopus changed? And it'll change back for us. Okay, so as we look at this octopus, make some observations here. It's very darkly colored, kind of a bright red, dark red even, and then it's smooth. But now look at it. It turned more of a brownish red and white, creamish color maybe, and it's no longer smooth. It actually has peaks, like its skin has pokey parts to it. Check this out again. Look at especially this part of its body. Did you see how the texture of its skin changed? This is what it's doing to camouflage. So it's changing its colors, and it's also changing the shape or texture of its skin. It's fascinating. And so it has different muscles basically within its skin to allow it to do both of those things. And this allows it again to hide. The camouflage ability of these animals is amazing. So it's great when you want to hide from a predator because you can't be found, right? But also, if it's hiding in a reef or in a rock structure, depending on where the octopus lives, maybe its food is going to get a little bit closer, which means you're more likely to be able to capture it. So now that the food is close by, the octopus needs to capture it. How is it going to capture its food? Do you see all of those arms? Look at those arms. They have 8 of them, hence the name octopus. Okay, so they have 8 arms, and those 8 arms are lined with suction cups. Now, Remy actually had a question. What do they use those suction cups for? One of the things is to capture food. Suction cups, as we know, are great at sticking, right? Well, if you have a lot of them, you might be excellent at sticking. In fact, sticking to things like food, like rock surfaces. So if a big wave comes by, you don't just get pushed around. You get to stay still. They even allow them to walk, which is also important. The other thing that a suction cup can do that's really fascinating is it can smell. Now, we did talk about the eyes and how good the eyes are at seeing, but a lot of times, especially animals like the giant Pacific octopus, it lives in an area that might be murky. So even though we can see far, the water is murky and it's difficult to see through. So its suction cups can sense chemical signals around it, which is basically like smelling and tasting. And it's using that to help it navigate around, to be able to find food. Even when it can't see well because the water is too cloudy, it can still sense its surroundings with those suction cups. So an excellent thing to help it navigate around. Okay, so what does an octopus eat? That's another thing that we'll need to know, especially if we're thinking about neighbors that are going to live inside this exhibit, right? Do you think an octopus eats fish? Yeah, sure, why not, right? Now, only if it can capture the fish. So maybe if the exhibit is really, really big, you can have fish in there, and it's no problem, as long as the fish have a place to go. But if it's a really big octopus, you maybe don't want fish living with it. A thing that octopuses really love to eat are things like crabs and shrimp. They'll also eat clams, mussels, so many different things. Snails, they'll eat snails. Ooh, here's another thing. They will eat other octopuses and squid too. So lots of different things are part of the octopus diet. Now we have Henry asking, can an octopus change to any color? Henry, that's a real good question. I wouldn't say just any color. Like, I don't think that I've ever seen a purple octopus. It's close. This is kind of like almost purple-ish. But there's only like a limited number of colors that they can change. I have seen yellows, mostly reds, I want to say, browns. I've seen black and white and greens. So every so often you'll see blue, which is really cool. So those are kind of the colors that you're typically going to see for an octopus. But yeah, that's a great question. Wouldn't it be cool if you saw a rainbow octopus? All right. So now we can kind of see maybe what kind of colors we want in the exhibit too, so the octopus can blend in really well, right? Okay, so I hope that you have a really good idea of what that place might look like. Now, we have a few pictures of our octopus exhibit here, and you'll have a chance to kind of see what we decided on for our exhibit. Now, here's the interesting thing. Whenever we have an exhibit here at the aquarium and the part that people can see, so if you were to be a guest coming to the aquarium, the part that you can see is a really important part. That's where the animal tends to live. But there's even more going on behind the scenes. So we'll take a look at what this exhibit looks like behind closed doors as well. All right, so here's our octopus exhibit. Is this something that you may have kind of imagined? Now remember, this is a giant Pacific octopus, so it lives in cold water and it likes a lot of rocky surfaces, places to hide, right? So as you can see, there's this rocky wall. You'll see there's also rocks down here. Now, one thing you may not know is that kind of behind this rock here, it can actually hide right there. Another thing for this exhibit that we can't really see just based on like looking through the viewing window, which is basically what we're doing, is right here. Did you see the octopus? Right here above the octopus is actually a piece of plexi. So it's plastic and it creates kind of almost like a cave right where this octopus is hanging out. It blocks the light. So the octopus here thinks it's hiding in a cave, which is good because remember, they like to feel secure. They like having a place to hide. So it feels secure. It feels like it has a place to hide, but we can still see it. So that's a really important thing when you have an aquarium that you want to see the animals in. You need to make sure that the animals feel secure and they have what they need. But if we just gave it a bunch of caves that it can hide away and we'd never see it, then we'd never get a chance to observe this octopus and see what's so amazing about it. So having this piece of plexi up here to kind of give that security to the octopus, but still be able to see it, is an excellent thing for that animal and for us too. Now, other things you'll notice in there. Did you notice this right here? This is seaweed, and we're actually using artificial seaweed. But it's something that kind of gives it a little bit more to think about. If it's just a big blank square, the octopus has nothing to interact with. So we want to make sure it has things to interact with. Other things it can interact with, take a look on the bottom. There's some sand. So there's lots of different textures that the octopus can explore. The rock work, the individual rocks, the sand, the seaweed. We can even move around the rocks every now and then. And when the octopus walks around, it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Things have changed. What's going on? And it has to think about it. And then, of course, neighbors. We definitely want neighbors. Now, did you notice I don't see anything that an octopus might eat, at least that we have talked about so far, right? I don't see another octopus. I don't see any squid, any fish. There's no clams or crabs or shrimp. Those animals don't live in here because if they did, they wouldn't live here very long. That's right. That octopus would find it and would eat it. Now, Remy is saying that that there is a gill opening and closing on the side. Does the octopus breathe water? Very interesting question. So that's important to know, right? If the octopus is breathing with the water, we need to make sure this water is clean enough that the octopus can breathe it. We also have to make sure it's clean enough that the octopus can live in it, right? So this is all part of its kind of breathing apparatus. So that part right there is an opening in the body of the octopus. This whole body right here is called the mantle. So that's where all of its internal organs are. And so this opening allows water to go into its mantle. And that water bathes all of its internal organs. So the water actually washes over all of its guts. And then it comes out of this, called its siphon. So the water goes in and the water comes out and goes in and out. And inside, among all those guts, including its digestive system, are the gills. So the gills are inside its body. So when the water washes over those gills, the gills can take the little particles of oxygen in the water that it needs for breathing. So even though it's in water, you still need to have oxygen in the water in order for the octopus and fish and any of the animals that need oxygen, it has to be in the water in order for them to get it. So it's important that part of its exhibit has bubbles maybe that get put inside, or maybe just that the water gets shuffled around a whole lot. So that way we can get enough oxygen into the water for an animal like an octopus to breathe. So it's very, very important. Okay, so we have now seen what its exhibit looks like here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. Was it the same or was it different than what you were imagining? Something to kind of think about. Now, as you'll see here, this octopus has an opportunity to explore. Now, they are kind of shy and they do get tired pretty quickly. When they have lots of opportunities to explore like this, they take long, long naps, which is good. We want an octopus to stay busy and then take long naps. I think about that very similarly to my dog. My dog is the same way. If I give him lots of toys and we have lots of attention and he gets to play a lot, then he wants to take long naps. That's exactly what we want to do with our octopus right here. Now, having all those textures is all part of keeping it busy and keeping it thinking, right? Okay, so now that we have seen the front of the exhibit, shall we look behind the scenes and see what's needed? Now, remember we said that it is living in water and it's also putting the water into its body. That water's rushing over its internal organs and then coming out again. The water has to be pristine. That means we need filtration because the animal, the octopus, and all of its neighbors, they eat food, right? And anything that eats food has to go to the bathroom. That means it's going to go to the bathroom in the water. So we need filtration to help kind of take all of that stuff out of the water to keep it clean. Now, this is one step to all of that. This thing here is called a sand filter. It's basically a big cylinder, okay, a big ball of sand. And the water gets pushed through the sand. Now, if you think about this a little bit, if you had a big bucket of sand and you put water in the top, and maybe that had chunks in it. Maybe you decided to stir up something inside. And then you put the water in the sand. The water that comes out is cleaner because the sand is so fine that it catches a lot of those particles. So this is one way for us to get chunks out of the water. Even small chunks can come out of the water using a sand filter. Now, another thing that gets the chunks out of the water is something called a filter sock or a filter bag. And basically, this is it starts white, changes color after time, but it's like a pretty fine mesh material, and you can see them right here. So the water from the exhibit goes into this mesh material, and when it comes out, a lot of the chunks are stuck in the bag. Now, for the sand filter, you can actually rinse out the sand and get rid of some of those chunks. And for the filter bag, you can do the same thing. You can actually untie it. You can see the ties up here. Turn it inside out and blast out all the gross. Pretty cool, right? And then when you're done, you can put it back up there and it'll catch the chunks again. Now, we did talk a little bit about making sure there's oxygen in the water, right? Do you see all those bubbles? That's part of how that water is moving around in the system so much that we're putting oxygen back into the system. So it's really important that there is a little bit of movement of water that allows it to kind of get more oxygen inside, to have enough oxygen in the water for the animals to survive. Now, another thing in this picture that's a little bit harder to see is all of this right here. Now, you can see a big a sheet of plastic here that's dark. It making it tough to see. But down here, maybe you see a little bit of blue. These are called bioballs or biofiltration. Basically, it's a little ball that has a ton of surface area. There's spikes everywhere. And they're not spikes where it would hurt anything. It's spikes so there's a lot of places for bacteria to settle because this bacteria is good bacteria. In fact, this is the bacteria that breaks down the waste from the animals called ammonia. It breaks it down into something less toxic. So that means it cleans the water. And so this whole tower here is full of these balls that have bacteria growing on them that are helping to clean the water of stuff called ammonia. So it's really good stuff to help clean the stuff that they're not chunks. Right? So we can take the chunks out here, but the biological filtration is changing kind of almost like the chemistry of the water in a sense. Okay? So that's another important step for filtration. Now, what else do we have to consider for filtration? Well, we also have to consider the temperature because you want to make sure that wherever the animal is living, it matches the temperature they live in. Now, do you remember what we said about the giant Pacific octopus, where you find them out in the ocean? You find them where it's cold, right? So we need to make sure that that the water stays cold. In fact, the giant Pacific octopus exhibit is the coldest exhibit that we have here. Take a look at these things here. Can you tell how cold it is? Well, that one says temperature. It is 47.9 degrees Fahrenheit. That's chilly. Yeah, it's real cold. So this is really good, though, because this is what an octopus needs in order to thrive, at least the giant Pacific octopus. There's lots of other octopuses out there that'll live in different areas. So the giant Pacific octopus needs cold. That's what we have here. And then this one here shows you the flow. Part of filtration is making sure that the water gets filtered fast enough that it cleans it well enough. So that means that you have pumps that kind of push the water around in order to get it clean. And that's what this is detecting. The flow rate is 71.5 gallons per minute. So every minute, 71.5 gallons of water gets cleaned. It gets pushed through everything. That's incredible, right? Now, here at the aquarium, we have somewhere around 1.1 million gallons of water throughout our whole aquarium, and we filter about 1 million gallons an hour. So that's pretty crazy, but it's necessary because these animals depend on the cleanliness of this water in order to survive. Now, not only do we just have all of this stuff set up to clean the water, but we also will take a sample of this water. It will go to a water quality lab that tests the water's chemistry and makes sure that it is tip-top shape. And if something's not right, then our team, our animal care team, or aquarists, will go in and they'll make any kind of modifications that are needed to make sure that it is perfect for our animals. So that is more stuff that you have to consider when you're housing an animal, not just what the exhibit might look like to make it look pretty and have it be a healthy place for the animal, but all of the filtration and cleaning for the animal too. Another question from Remy. Does the octopus get bored being in the same habitat? Oh my gosh, I think you're reading my mind because I was just thinking about that. If this is the only place that it lived, and this is exactly how it stayed all of the time, and you fed it the same thing every day at the same time every day, it could get very boring. So changing it up a little bit changes it up a lot for our octopus. Changing what time of day it eats, or maybe what it eats. Remember, we said there's so many different things it can eat. Give it a few different types of things, and that will allow it to try some new things. You know, one really fun way that we can make it think a lot is by giving it lots of foods all at the same time. I actually spoke with Godzilla. That is our giant Pacific octopus's name, Godzilla. I spoke with his aquarist. And his aquarist told me there was one time where she tried to give him 8 different types of food, one for every arm. There was a point where he was like, whoa, 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 this is too much for me. Because remember, the suction cups are tasting. Each arm was tasting something different. That is mind-blowing. Think about putting 8 different types of food in your mouth at the same time. I mean, first of all, you'd have a very full mouth. But also, like, try to process all of that and piece it apart. That's really thinking, isn't it? Now, another thing we can do, like I was saying before, is just move the furniture around. Move the rocks around a little bit. Or you could even give them toys. So yes, octopuses can have toys. Now, out in the ocean, they don't really have toys. They don't really need them because they have to stay safe from predators. Here, Godzilla doesn't have to worry about predators. So let's give him other things to think about, like toys. Now, not only, we don't just have Godzilla. We actually have other octopuses here as well. We've had red octopuses, we've had a day octopus, big eye octopuses, and they're all very similar in that they need some activity to keep them thinking and keep them interested, and then they need to rest. So we have lots of different puzzles or interactions that we can give them. Even having the aquarist touch the octopus is really kind of interesting for the octopus because it's being able, it can sense what your smells are like. Maybe you just handled some fish and then you touch the octopus and it goes, wait, 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 I don't just smell fish, I smell people. So that's kind of interesting. Let's take a look at some of the toys that an octopus might get. All right, so what we have here is a little red octopus. And you'll notice it has a little box as a toy. Now, it doesn't seem like an octopus would want to play with a box, right? Well, it might be interested because it's something different. But if you put food in there, that's some motivation, right? Because now there's something that this octopus wants, that little piece of shrimp. So this octopus knows something's going on. Its arms are already out of the exhibit. So it's going to climb around, and it looks like it found the box, and now it needs to figure out how to open that box. And that's exactly what it does. It figures out how to open the box, and then it can climb inside and have its little meal. But this is the fun thing. The box is also really secure. So now that octopus has a place to hide and eat its food and not have to worry about being out in the open. So that's really fun. Now, we can also give them other toys. Now, some dog toys are things that we do give them sometimes. We've also given them Mr. Potato Head. So that's a fun toy too. And you can even give them other kind of food puzzles. Food puzzles like even a jar with something inside. Now, a jar is different than the box. The box lid just popped off, right? The jar, the lid is screwed on. So let's take a look. So we put the food around it so octopus can smell it. You also notice that there's some holes in the jar so the octopus can smell the food. And then we close the lid and hand the jar to the octopus. Now this octopus is tasting the jar. It tastes that there's something in there that it wants. But in order for it to get that food, the octopus has to unscrew that lid. Now, not only does it have to think about how to unscrew the lid, but it has to actually do it. And that's the cool thing about an octopus. Not only are they smart enough to figure it out, but they have the adaptations to allow them to do that. So this octopus was able to unscrew the lid to get the food on the inside. Now here's a fun thing about them. That octopus is aquarist. So here's the fun thing about them. They actually do learn. The very first time they get the jar with food, they have to figure it out. And it takes kind of a while. As they continue to get that toy, they learn and they can open it faster and faster and faster. So octopuses are the most intelligent invertebrate out there. And so you need to make sure that if you have an exhibit, you're giving them plenty to explore and plenty to do. Well, everyone, that actually does it for our Build a Habitat Octopus episode today. I hope that you enjoyed hanging out with us today. We do have more episodes in store for later this week. So if you are interested, check out our website, aquariumofpacific.org. We have all of them listed there, the times, the subjects, and all of the stuff that you might want to see. If you have any more questions, please send us that email. It's all the way on the bottom, live@lbaop.org. Thanks again for joining us. Bye.